Well, hello and welcome to another episode of Answers from the Stairs. I'm your host, Chris Vester, and I've got I'm going to go ahead and say it, my favorite guest ever. Until my next daughter gets on here, and then I'll just have to say that you tied, and then the next one will be that you tied. This is my oldest daughter, Avery, currently Avery Vester. Mm-hmm. She is on her way to being named something different in about 3 weeks. Yeah. And I wanted to have her on here so we could have some discussions about what it was like growing up in our household, and get some answers from her stairs of personal development. You good with that?
Yeah, that works.
Cool. And I asked everybody the same question. I know your birthday because I happened to be there.
Yeah.
I haven't been there so far for anybody else's birthday. February 20th, 2001. Mm-hmm. And then I say, after that, I know you don't remember that. Mm-hmm. But what's the first time you remember being paid to provide service? Because we didn't do allowances in our house.
No.
So.
Yeah. I think it was the summer in between third and fourth grade, maybe. I don't know how old I was at that point in time. But however old you are at that point in time, I made friendship bracelets, and I went to a summer camp at school, and people were like, "Oh, those are really cool. Where'd you get them?" I was like, "I actually made them. Like, I can make you one if you want to pay for it." And so that's the first thing I remember, because that carried on into the school year, going into third grade and then again fourth grade.
So entrepreneur early.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I remember that. Like, I remember going into that season of life with you, because you had questions like how much to charge, like how do you determine like how much to charge, and we went through like a cost. I don't know if you remember the section. We went through the cost of your goods. Like,
yes, I remember that.
So is that a lesson that you think you've carried?
100%, because a lot of what I do, like outside of my full-time job, is based off of what is my time worth, what does everything cost, like what goes into it, like do graphics, and so like the subscriptions I have to Adobe and Canva and all those fun things, like that has to go into it too, because those have to be paid for. Like, that shouldn't be off my back. That's got to be factored in at some point. Right. And just knowing what my time's worth based off the education and my experience. Cool. So that's played into it a lot.
Yeah. Between the third. So I think I told you this. It's been interesting to me that everybody that I've interviewed, they're all entrepreneurial. Mm-hmm. And every one of them have started off in their single-digit ages, mm-hmm. like in under 10, in some type of a venture where they were basically their own boss. Mm-hmm. You know, we've had people who ran loan care services, and somebody who did a newspaper route, and like we had all these, and all of them came from entrepreneurial parents. So what led you to have that conversation, like you said, in third and fourth grade, and to go, you like it, I can provide it, but you got to pay me?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think seeing my mom be her own boss, like since I can remember, mm-hmm. probably plays a role into it a lot. But also, you kind of push me to be like, you should, like, if they're asking you to make them something, they should pay for it. Like, right. You shouldn't, yes, you can be nice and be kind and hand that out, but if it's, like, not a friend or whatever, like, you should ask them to pay for it. And it wasn't like I was asking, like, $20. It's like $3. So it was definitely doable. But having my mother come from an entrepreneurial background, and then you being like, you should probably, like, ask people to pay you for that. Like, that's kind of where that conversation came from. And that's kind of what planted that seed that still is growing today.
Yeah. So as I'm sitting here thinking about it, that wasn't the last thing, and mm-hmm. that wasn't the only thing, because you went through a spell where you were using duct tape to make things.
I duct taped everything. Like, I was very convinced as a fifth grader, my prom dress was going to be made out of duct tape as a ninth grader. Thank the Lord that did not happen. But yeah, I did duct tape. I did anything crafty, really, I try to monetize on it.
Yeah. And wasn't there a period in that somewhere in that, where you were being entrepreneurial at school, and there was an issue with some of the parents? Maybe I'm imagining that, but I feel like some of the parents were complaining that you were asking to get paid?
That wasn't at school, actually. That was at the gym.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. One of the daughters, like, had asked me to make her a couple things. I was like, this is how much it's going to cost and all that fun stuff. And the mom got bent out of shape because she was having the conversation outside. Like, her daughter was maybe like a little younger than I was. And so the mom was having to fit the bill for it all. And the mom was like, what are you doing? And so she got real bent out of shape when I was like, your daughter has not paid for her things. And like, she has them, and that's not how that works. And so as a, like, 8-year-old, you're having this conversation with an adult. And it was like, I should probably be paid or, like, reimbursed in some way, shape, or form. And so she bought, like, the raw materials and gave them back to me.
Oh, wow.
So,
that's cool. Mm-hmm. I didn't know the end of that story, but it just hit me that I knew there was an issue with some type of a parent. And if you look at, like, her solution was to buy the raw materials rather than pay for the good. That's, like, you know, what a different mindset that comes from. So being in someone who said, hey, I know I have a skill set that I need to be paid for. How did that lead to choices that you made when it came to, like, where you went to school? Because, I mean, you were very definite about where you wanted to go to school. Like, how do you feel like that early on mindset developed into different types of choices and what you did next in life?
I feel like it stemmed into a passion to do things that didn't feel like work. So, like, whether it was photography, art, or anything of the creative realm, like, being able to do that and make money for it was kind of where my goal was to eventually end up. And that shifted a little bit in high school, but I went to NC State in the design college because I knew that I could network. And most anybody that comes out of that college is either really, really high up in the business they work for or owns the business. And so I was like, that's ultimately the goal, and that's kind of where I want to end up. And then later on in my college career, like, my goals shifted a little bit into wanting to be a creative, but also marry that with some element of biblical studies design and all that fun stuff within ministry. And so I am now employed by a ministry and a nonprofit, but I still do entrepreneurial things on the side to kind of fill the other cups that I feel like are empty when it comes to serving in ministry and creating in that way.
That's cool. So looking back to those early life decisions, because I do want to get into, like you say, finding a way to fill the other cups. Mm-hmm. You spent a lot of time, so Shelby hasn't yet, but I feel like she will, although she's looking to do something different. Mm-hmm. But you and Gabrielle both spent some time working at the dealerships in jobs that didn't fill cups, but taught lessons.
Yes.
Tell me about some of the lessons you learned working here in the dealership space.
Customer service is hard. That's probably the first lesson I learned. My first job was when I was 15. I worked alongside of the guy you had hired to take pictures of inventory. And so we would go around and take pictures of the cars and upload them to, I think, the website at the time. And it taught me that work is hard, minimum wage is terrible, and I think enjoying photography, because I had only seen photography from a consumer's point of view. At that point, I had never really done it on the other side. And so it kind of taught me a lot about composing an image and lighting. And he let me go through one of his wedding albums that he had taken pictures of, which was pretty sick. Because I was like 15 again. Right. I was like, that would be the dream. Like, that's so cool. But I learned a lot about just relating with a boss and being a good employee, and the importance of being on time and being accountable and being reliable. And then I did that solo the next 2 summers, I think. And then I also did switchboard during the school year, because that was just more adaptable to my hours within school. And that job taught me that I did not want to talk to people all day, every day. I'm very much introverted, and that was not something I wanted to do.
That's good.
But it came with its fun stories and funny moments, and being able to talk people off their angry ledge and kind of just communicate in a different way. It taught me how to communicate really well, and I think that's serving me now, because I answer the phones a lot when I'm at camp. So
I remember after like 2 days, because again, it was summertime work because you're out of school.
It was hot.
And we're in North Carolina, so it was ridiculously hot. And again, you're taking pictures for the website, and it's for minimum wage. And I said, so have you learned anything? And your answer was, I've learned I don't want to do this for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
Although I think the photography part of it, that part of it you enjoyed, but the idea of like that being the end element, like there's just not a lot of creativity in that. And you're definitely a creative in space mind. And so like serving you, that was not going to serve that purpose for you. No. But you did chase the dream and achieved it of going to the School of Design. Like you started that in, I think, 10th grade is when we've had the conversation about that's where you wanted to go. So, and you talked about studying it. I mean, it's a very difficult, 3,500 applications, 144 students a year. So it's really hard to get into. I think everybody around you believed you could. Did you feel like you could? Like, were you confident?
No, not at all. Because I had picked up like my grandmother's old camera and then mom's old camera and started taking pictures around the farm. And everything I did was self-taught. I'd worked on photography throughout high school because it was a fun little hobby and I liked going outside and taking pictures, but I didn't pursue that professionally. And so like I did not force myself to learn. Like everything I did was like, I'm just gonna go have fun. And so when it came to putting my portfolio together, the summer before my senior year, I only had photos. And like I didn't really follow a theme. Like it was just whatever, whenever. And having to learn, like I need to supplement that with watercolors and charcoal and pastels and drawings and all these fun things. And it was crunch time. And I was like, this all kind of flows together because we did it like based off of what I took pictures of most, nature and flowers and the ocean. But looking at all the other applicants' stuff, because I mean, you're in Facebook groups with the incoming class or the people that want to be in the incoming class, and knowing that I had literally like crunch timed this together in 3 months and got it sent in and prepared, I was like, there is no way that I'm going to get accepted because I had literally just learned and practiced most of this stuff. And like I had never done it in a classroom setting before. Like it was all just for fun.
And self-taught.
Yeah.
So what other passions did you find through that process though?
I really like watercolor painting. Like that is something that I can do for hours and not get bored. It is a little frustrating because it requires lots of patience. But I've found that I really, really enjoy that in acrylics. Like that's a medium that I had never played with before, and I thoroughly enjoy it.
So do you think you would have found those if you hadn't, quote unquote, self-taught?
Absolutely not. No, because I wouldn't have learned my style. Like now I know when I go in to paint something, like this is going to be the outcome. So I don't need to compare it to somebody else's work when that's not my style, that's not my process. And so I kind of learned my process as an artist, and like learning how to not compare, which is huge, especially in that space. Like it is so easy to compare because everyone's gifted in different things.
Right. So do you think that self-teaching and learning your process and learning your style gives you a different take on your values? Like your value as an artist, does it allow you to see yourself as, hey, I do have a style, I do have a talent, I do have, like, do you think that changes how you see, and the reason I'm asking the question, if we go back to the first thing that you were selling, right, was a craft, creative, and your question was, how do I decide what to charge? We had this conversation about what goes into it, the cost of goods sold. But with most creatives in any of that space, like you said, there are ancillary things, but what you're being paid for most is your style. Do you think it helps you to say, hey, because I'm self-taught and I've seen that I have talent and I see that I have my own style and I think that has value, does it make it easier to price yourself out?
Yes and no. I think it makes it easier in a sense of what you're marketing, and I know what I offer. And so in that sense, it's easier. But in the other flip side is you don't have that experience of being taught in a classroom setting, learning from X, Y, and Z people that probably have some oomph behind their name. Like you don't have that. Yeah, they don't, like you don't have that. And so it's harder to prove yourself in a way because you don't have those connections, but it's easier to market yourself because you know what you offer, and I think you know what you want as a client at that point.
That's good, like knowing the client. Because one of the toughest things I think for any business person is to know who their avatar is. Who's your avatar of a client? Because, once you can define that avatar, you can begin to put yourself in front of that avatar, and it helps you define your worth. Like, if this is who I'm going to be serving, then there's going to be a price point of that person and that client.
And it makes you work to gain their interest. Like, it helps you grow in a way, and it helps you narrow down your niche and develop your worth in a sense almost.
Yeah, I think that's good. So going into college, you started college in the fall of 2019. Your freshman spring semester was spring of 2020, which was, as we all know, the
crazy.
Yeah, craziness.
Yeah.
You came home for spring break and didn't go back until mid-fall semester? Is that the way it worked? I can't remember.
I don't even remember, honestly. Well, yeah, we went back in person, I think, mid-fall, but we were on campus distance learning at the start of that semester.
That's a new term, distance learning. Permission to cheat. But anyway, you talked about it, and you and I had lots of discussion. The college education, in my opinion, is not so much the value of that piece of paper you get, but the network that you build while you're there. So you get there, you're really excited about building network, and then all of a sudden everybody's behind a Zoom camera. How did that affect you, and what did you learn from that?
I was like, well, this kind of defeats the purpose. Because, I really wasn't seeking the degree. Granted, it's a great degree, and it has opened the doors for several different things and has allowed me to be successful in what I want to do. But the whole reason I went, I knew I could be a creative on my own. I have the entrepreneurial mind. I knew I could do it by myself, but I knew it would be easier with a network. And so I was like, dag, this literally takes away all the fun and the purpose of me going to college. But it's funny because the friends I made within the first 5-6 months of being in college, I still talk to today. One of them is a photographer. We talk about wedding photography all the time. She's getting married this year. I'm getting married this year. So there's a lot of commonalities there. And had I not taken my social dance class, I would not know her. And so that was just one of the gen eds that got me some friends. And then within my own degree and I think subset of that, I have a couple of friends that I still talk to today, and we stay connected. And so I do have a network. It's just not as big as I had hoped because of that.
So you got out in 3 years, which not a lot of people do. Do you think that the lack of social networking is the reason and the drive for wanting to get out so fast?
Possibly. But also I'm very competitive, and my mother got out in 3 years. It's I have to do the same thing. And so that was also a main driver. But yeah, I was ready to put myself out there in the professional sense. I was tired of going to class and just doing stuff for class. It wasn't portfolio building for me, at least, because I wasn't going into the research side of design studies. I was going into the creative side of that. And so what I was doing was not serving my portfolio.
Gotcha. And I think it was the same year that you decided to going into seminary afterwards, seeking your master's in divinity, which you're still in the process of.
Yes.
That's going to be a longer process than 3 years. So how quickly did you learn that grad school was different than undergrad?
Oh, very quickly. I took Greek and 2 other classes my first semester, and that about killed me. So I was oh, this is a different beast. I need to take my time. I can't speed through it because I really want to marinate in what I'm learning. And so my mindset on school had to change a lot.
Yeah. To give the audience perspective on that, you took 21 hours your last semester for you had to get special permission to take that amount of hours so that you could get out early. And then you go in and sign up for 9 hours, I think, for grad school. And you're this is killing me.
Yes.
So drastically different.
Yes.
Drastically different. What'd you learn? There's some development in that.
Yeah. I learned a different set of skills in regards to time management. There's a lot more time that goes into grad school work just because it's deeper, especially the seminary route. There's so much that goes into that. But I also learned that the end of seminary is not knowing everything. Like I mean, master's degree, you're like, I'm going to be a master in that. No. Seminary gives you the tools necessary to learn Scripture and study Scripture better. It does not make you a master of Scripture. And so that was also a huge mindset change, because I had gone into it being like, I'm going to learn everything I need to know. Wrong. It gives you the tools to learn everything. As you get older, you will not know everything at the end of it.
So how do you see that being part of your creative journey moving forward? Like how do you feel like you'll, they've heard you talk about how I went to design school. Mm-hmm. I have a design mind. I'm a creative, mm-hmm. photography, watercolor, passions. Mm-hmm. But now we're studying women's ministry studies. Mm-hmm. Like how do you marry that?
Yep. So ultimately, I would love to write my own Bible study curriculum while also designing what that looks like. So the typeface, the illustrations, anything and everything you can think of when it comes to a Bible study book. I want to be able to produce one of those by myself. And I think with my like side passions, if you will, like photography and artwork, I think using those to connect with people that I typically wouldn't connect with is how I see that kind of marrying into my degree and then eventually my master's degree.
Gotcha. When one proud daddy moment, you do have two jobs. You said I have a full-time job, but you have two full-time jobs.
Depending on the week, yeah.
And I was sitting with my discipleship crew at dinner, and you said, hey, I just got a raise at both places. Mm-hmm. And you said, and this is how much I'm going to make. Mm-hmm. And I was like, well, that's pretty daggone good, considering, mm-hmm. You just turned 24. Mm-hmm. And I said, well, how many hours a week is it? And you said, I don't know. And so it was a proud daddy moment, because the majority of the world sees life as every hour that I'm working for something, I've got to get X amount of dollars in exchange. And your idea was, hey, I'm being paid for the value that I provide, regardless of how many hours it takes. I know I'm providing value. Mm-hmm. So it was and I hung up the phone. I'm like, guys, I gotta brag on Avery for a minute. This is her thought process. How did that thought process develop?
I think it goes back to having a conversation with my grandfather when I was doing research for my class in 10th grade. We did, I think it was 10th grade, it was 9th or 10th grade, where we did a college research class. You research an avenue that you think you're wanting to go into, the school it requires, and all of that stuff. And I talked to him about like wanting to make money as a creative. And he was like, well, like, I don't know, artists don't really make that much money, and you might have to be a marketing manager and yada, yada, yada. And so that's kind of where I kind of got the wheels turning as to how can I make money, but also like fuel my passion and not feel like I'm in a boring 9-to-5 that doesn't serve me and fill up my cup. And so throughout looking at colleges and figuring out after college, when am I going to work and what's going to fill my cup up, like that was the main driving conversation. Is like, I want to make money and I want to enjoy my job, but I want it to be a creative avenue as well.
Yeah. So we never know how many small conversations have an effect on us, right? Yeah. And it is interesting. That's just, I believe that generation, because of the way they grew up and what they lived through, and the generation before them, mm-hmm. It's a caught not taught, and it's like money you have to have, mm-hmm. But the idea that it can actually be something you enjoy, mm-hmm. sometimes can be
an odd thought, yeah,
right? Because I enjoy what I do, mm-hmm. and some days it feels like a chore, mm-hmm. but most days it just feels like an adventure, mm-hmm. And I think if you can approach life that way, that it's see it as an adventure. It's like the idea of when you look at a problem, is it an obstacle or an opportunity? I think, sometimes that if we just approach it like today's the opportunity, there's always going to be an obstacle, but that obstacle is the opportunity. Mm-hmm. So moving into the next season, so we've talked about a lot. We've talked about getting started early, 3rd to 4th grade, being entrepreneurial in thought process, learning, seeing your mother work for herself her whole life, and being encouraged, like, don't step away from understanding that you have value. The next season of life is not just as a entrepreneur, because you are stepping into that a little bit. You're starting to spread your wings and look at ways to do that somewhere in the 64-hour work week that you're working every week. But there's also this new season of getting married, becoming another part of another family. And your mother and I have been really, really strategic about letting this be your day. You know, we've told you in the beginning, super excited. Like I can't express how excited I am about Thomas and you. And, cause I think it's a great pairing, but letting you have all of it. In other words, letting you do the planning, you do how everything, we wanted it to be your day. And not that it wasn't our day, but I think looking back at our wedding day, there's things that we would have done different, but we were, I'm not going to say pressured. We just felt like there was some amount of pressure to do it a certain way. And we didn't want you to feel that way. But there's a lot that goes with that. Like, I mean, your mom made her own wedding dress. She made the bridesmaids' dresses. Like, she took a lot of that burden on herself because it did make it her day. You know, it made it so much of her day. Through the process of planning a wedding, by the way, this is going to drop the day you get married. So when people are listening to this, you will no longer be Avery Vester. You'll be Avery Garrett. What have you learned about yourself, about Thomas, through this process of planning this first event that you guys are doing together? Like, it's a big together, but it's the first one.
I am very type A, and he is very type B. Like that's the first thing that I have learned. And not that he is like just kicking rocks, but the way his brain works is completely different than mine. Like, I have a list and I go after it, whereas he has a list and like there's like different parts of that list that have to go together to make that list work and get done. And so where I'm like, okay, check, 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 check. He's just a little bit different. And like, he's a people person. And so any task that I've needed to like him to talk to somebody, or it's a phone call I don't really want to make, like, I've delegated that to him because that's his strength. Like, he's a people person. That fills his cup, and that just really drains mine. So I've handled all of like the back end stuff, the design stuff. And I've learned that I like lists, and I really like everything to have its space, and within the people that I've come in contact with and have worked with for the wedding, I've seen like the creative side is very type B and everything else is kind of type A. And so just watching those dynamics play out has been very interesting, because I'm like, I'm very type A and I need you to answer my email like right now. So I can get all my other ducks in a row.
Gotcha. So it is exciting to watch. It's been fun to watch. And again, we've said to you from the beginning, when you need us, just raise your hand and say, I need you. Otherwise, we're going to be there when you tell us to be there. Show up how you want us to show up. And with 100% intention, not that we want to take our hands off of it. It's just like we're done with life, but it's like we really want it to be so that you can look back and go, that was my day, you know? And I think looking back, I talked to your mom a little bit about it because you've been so independent your whole life. You know, you were raised in the gym floor, right? I mean, and we're around adults from a very early age a lot. There was never really a daycare for you. Like, you went from being with adults to preschool. Like, and so there was never really daycare. And I've told you before, sometimes I feel like because of your maturity level in a lot of ways, you're not always mature. Don't get a big head. But because of that, I feel like I robbed you of childhood. Do you feel like that any of this thought processes is because you never had a childhood, or do you just think it was part of your childhood?
I feel like it was part of my childhood. Like, even if I had gone to daycare, I still would have grown up with the same parents. My mother still would have like been self-employed, and I think everything would have shaken out the same way. And I think being around adults has prepped me for being an adult and navigating adult relationships and communication and being professional at a young age. Because most of the time when I talk to people, they're much older, like in the career path that I'm in. And so as a young person, you have to kind of put on the professional face and be or act a little bit older. But I think learning those skills at a young age has prepped me and gotten me to where I am, because I don't struggle with those conversations. Like, they just come naturally.
Gotcha. So if there's people that are listening, because this is like this whole having conversations and getting other people's climb of personal development stairs, the audience is very broad. It's like it's automotive. We've had city planners. This one will probably be aimed at young creatives that are entrepreneurial in spirit. What's some advice that you would give someone who is in your generation? Because it is your generation does think different. Hallelujah. I don't think that that's a bad thing. I think it's a great thing that every generation thinks differently. It's just sometimes we just try to silence their voice in a way that makes no sense. But if you were speaking to someone of your generation that has drive and has desire and has this idea of, God's created me for more, what would you tell them?
Go get it. Like, nothing is stopping you from chasing after that. Like, I work 2 jobs, but I'm still learning on the side. I'm trying to develop my craft on the side. I'm trying to step into what I feel like God's calling me to, and that doesn't mean I have to put pause on everything else. Like, it's not pause, it's and. What can I do with this at the same time as making money, paying the bills, doing what I have to do to survive? Because you always have time, and it fills your cup up more than it drains you. Like, I thought that listening to podcasts all the time and like learning outside of my work hours and doing extra stuff would drain the mess out of me, especially right now when I'm planning a wedding and trying to figure out, like, okay, how am I going to be a wife and do all of this? But it has not drained me. I think it's given me more of a passion to do my day job and what pays the bills. And so you can show up better where you're at right now if you take time to figure out what God's calling you to do and chase after that. And eventually it can be all of that, but it can also be and. It doesn't have to be a pause.
That's good. That's good. That's really good. That's a very mature thought. I'm proud of that. Well, thank you for spending an afternoon with me. Just before you're going to ditch my last name.
It'll still be part of my name.
But I love you. I'm proud of you. I say it. I never shy away from saying it. I don't think that how you show up in the world is an inspiration to me. You and your sisters, in different ways, each one of you inspire me every single day by something you've said, like you just did, or the way you show up. And I am super grateful that you're my daughter.
Thanks. I'm grateful you're my dad. Love you too.
I love you. Thank you. Oh, if people want to connect with you, like that's important. If we're going to network, let's network. If people are going to connect with you, what's the best way for them to reach out to you for whatever services, creative services, whether that's photography or artwork or whatever? Like, how do they reach out? How do they find you?
I think the best way right now is Instagram. And so if it's, just get up with me personally. So Avery Vester is my Instagram handle. If it's photography related, it's avester.photography on Instagram. And if we get connected there, I'll share my email if it's necessary.
Gotcha. Are you going to need to change those IGs?
Nope. Well, my personal, yes, but
okay.
Yeah, Avery Vester will still be in the. It'll still pop up.
So we'll just ask for Thomas's permission. Oh, thank you again. I appreciate it.
Thank you.